The tech industry is one filled with opportunities, just like earlier, blockchain technology, and so the government wants to bring some of them to our OFWs. The Science and Technology Department tells us about the IFWD program with DOST NCR's Romelen Tresvalles joining us now on The Final Word. Engineer, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good evening. Thank you also for having us.
So how did the DOST come up with this idea to help our overseas Filipino workers?
We started conceptualizing the program back in 2019 through our then Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña and our then Undersecretary for Regional Operations, Yusek Brenda Nazareth Manzano. And then pandemic came in 2020, so we quickly launched the project. Back in 2020. And this would be to encourage those that are OFWs that when they come back, they would start technology-based businesses and share their resources as well as really invest in the Philippines.
And which particular businesses or sectors are you helping our overseas Filipino workers?
So these would be technology-based businesses, primarily in the manufacturing sector. So you would have now food processing. They could go into agriculture. They could go into furniture making or gifts, housewares, and decors, and even ICT services and other S&T consultancy services.
But of course, engineer, before you start any kind of business, you have to have a plan, a concept. Do these OFWs have to present a strategy to the DOST before they can enroll in the program?
Not necessarily, and this is where the beauty of the program is. This is a two-phase program, where in phase 1, we would do the capacity building series, and then in phase 2, would be focused on their starting up their businesses. So under phase 1, we provide core business development modules. We also provide consultancy services on operations management. We would conduct series of trainings and as well as assign mentors to them that would help them refine their business idea. Or if they don't have a business idea yet, phase 1 would be an opportunity to get exposed to the different technologies produced by the DOST through our research and development institutions or the higher education institutions all over the Philippines. So they could choose whatever technology that the DOST generated and bring those to the market.
All right, you're educating them step by step to be smart entrepreneurs. So they don't have missteps along the way, when growing their business. But engineer, if they already have an existing business, can they still join this DOST OFW program?
They could still join as long as we have a set of criteria for the iForward PH program where OFWs that came back from the Philippines 3 years before, so for instance, now it's 2022. So those that came back to the Philippines in 2019 would be eligible to enter into the program. However, for the businesses, if they have started their business in 2019, they would be eligible to the iForward. But if they have started their business before that, we have another program which we call the Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program, which are for the businesses that have been existing for more than 3 years.
And how many beneficiaries have already joined this program of the DOST?
For the past 3 years since we started the program, we have had 386. We have trained 386 OFWs. And around 10% of this, 37, have already started their businesses. Or these are those that who proceeded to phase 2, where we provided funding support. For the others, they may also proceed to phase 2 using the concepts that they have learned during the phase 1. However, for iForward PH, phase 2 funding would be focused only for technology-based businesses in the sectors that I mentioned earlier.
And of course, we would also like to find out how many of these businesses have been successful in this DOST program and in which particular sectors?
Most of them went into food processing, so they're around 50% went into food processing. So this actually follows the trend in the manufacturing sector in the Philippines. 50% of which are really into food processing. We also have those that went into metal fabrication. So metal fabrication and equipment fabrication. And we have two that actually went into to solutions development.
So,
And so far, during our monitoring, all of them are still operating until now.
operating. And what is the target number of overseas Filipino workers that you want to serve in this initiative of the DOST?
For the next year, we're still targeting around 300 to be trained under phase 1.
And in terms of funding, how much do you usually give to a startup company if they want to get into food processing, metal fabrication, and solutions development?
Well, for now, the funding is very limited. It's only at 250,000 pesos per...
But nevertheless, a good startup
Yes.
seed fund, right, to start their
Yes.
business.
The good thing about this, though, is that we allot 70% of that, of the 250,000, into the equipment upgrading portion, their capital expenditure requirements, and then 30% would be for, say, they would have to do product testing first, do limited market testing, or if they would have to do successive laboratory testing to standardize the formulation or, say, comply with the requirements of the Food and Drug Authority. The 30% component is actually a grant provided for them. However, the 70% component for the equipment acquisition, those would have to be refunded back to the government for the period of 3 to 5 years, depending on the financial analysis that we would have to do. And this is provided at 0% interest.
This is a great initiative of the Department of Science and Technology because a lot of our overseas Filipinos who want to come back to the Philippines sometimes are at a loss.
Yes.
What do they get into? What kind of business? So are all OFWs who are returning to the Philippines eligible to join this initiative? And how can they apply to join this program? Do they just go and see you, Engineer Roms?
They would just have to email us. They can go to the office as well, or they can also go to the nearest DOST regional office.
So anybody,
Yes.
even a returning OFW only has a high school diploma or a college diploma but has really no experience in entrepreneurship can join this program.
Yes, sir. They can join this program as long as they are a returning OFW and they have to comply with the 3-year requirement.
Okay. So let's say after 6 months they say, oh, I have to go back for another job overseas. Then they're taken out of the program.
Not really. They just have to assign a family member to help them out with the business. And if there's a commitment from the family member to push through with the business, with starting up the business, they are still eligible to enroll to the program.
I'm sure a lot of our OFWs who are watching us right now in the final word would want to apply
Yes.
for the DOST's initiative to help overseas Filipino workers. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Engineer Roms Tresvalles, OIC, DOST, NCR Regional Office.